Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. More reaction to a lawsuit filed against the city of Windsor by a former city staffer. There's defense from some tonight, while others say the allegations aren't surprising. Plus, Windsor police suspensions have cost taxpayers more than $2 million over the last decade. We look into the numbers tonight. And today marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, but some say this year's festivities felt different, overshadowed by the devastation in Gaza. People are continuing to react to an explosive lawsuit alleging a culture of corruption at Windsor City Hall. Some are defending themselves from the allegations, while others say they aren't surprised. CBC's Dawson Chen has more.
Coerced into breaching professional and ethical obligations to carry out favors for the mayor's supporters. Those are words directly from the statement of claim by former city engineer Chris Nepsey. Mayor Drew Dilkens exercised his strong mayor powers to fire Nepsey in November, along with city solicitor Shelby Askenhager. At the time, Dilkens called the move a realignment for more effective decision-making. But in a list of alleged improprieties, Nepsey presents a portrait of a city where one ward receives favors while another ward suffers, all depending on the councillor's relationship with Mayor Drew Dilkens. For at least one former councillor, the allegations ring true.
None of this is surprising at all. This is the way it's been operating for at least the 8 years that I was on council. And to be quite frank, one of the main reasons why I chose not to return to council. Do I think that he would stoop to being petty? Absolutely. I mean, again, I felt that many, many times on council over the years.
Bordelin admits his own relationship with Dilkens was difficult. He believes it affected his efforts in 2017 to obtain city investment in more lighting for downtown alleys. The lawsuit presents a specific example of this culture. In 2021, Ward 5 benefited from road work on Erskine Street. According to Nepsey, this project wasn't approved or planned by council. The former engineer says the mayor coerced him to do it as a favor to Ward 5's councillor, described in the suit as a longtime supporter of the mayor.
I know what I was doing. I was lobbying him, lobbying the CEO, lobbying anyone who can do something. I don't know how they got the money to do it, but I was lobbying them. I mean, councillors, they can support anyone they want to. I have no issue with Drew Dilkens. He's my mayor, and he needed the support from all of us. I believe not just myself, other councillors support the mayor.
In contrast, Nepsey alleges the mayor instructed him to delay infrastructure projects in Ward 2 in order to spite Ward 2's councillor Fabio Costante. Costante declined to be interviewed about this, but longtime Ward 2 advocate Mary Ann Cutterman says she believes the allegation.
I myself have been feeling that this ward has been passed over, and I know that Fabio is quite outspoken. I really tend to believe that. Because I have seen that in operation in the past. I hope this lawsuit will bring some knowledge to that, and maybe we'll find the real truth about what's going on at City Hall.
These allegations have not been proven in court, and the city has yet to file a statement of defense. The mayor has previously declined an interview on this subject. In a statement, Dilkens denied all of the allegations and described them as spurious. He said the city will defend itself accordingly. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor Police paid more than $2 million over the last 11 years to officers who weren't working. That's according to data compiled by CBC News, examining officers who were suspended with pay. Now, up until recently, Ontario was the only province where suspended officers received full pay to stay home. The CBC's Dale Molnar went through all the data and joins me live with more. Dale, what are the numbers telling us?
Well, Meg, it's telling us that compared to other jurisdictions, Windsor Police had a lower percentage of officers who were suspended with pay. Across Ontario, CBC has learned that taxpayers shelled out about $134 million to suspended police officers over the past 11 years. And now here are some of the local numbers. Out of the 501 officers on the Windsor Police Service, 13 were suspended with pay during the time period from 2013 to present. And in LaSalle, one officer was suspended with pay over that time. This resulted in a cost to Windsor taxpayers of just over $2.6 million. In LaSalle, it was just over $61,000. Now in Windsor, there are currently 3 officers under suspension with pay at a cost of just over $128,000. And according to statistics CBC News has compiled, 5 Windsor officers were suspended during that time period for allegations of either gender-based or intimate partner-based violence, and 1 for sexual assault. The Windsor Police Service didn't respond to our request for comment. Both the Windsor Police Association and the chair of the police board were unavailable.
Dale, just last week, new rules came into effect that would allow chiefs to suspend officers without pay. How does that factor into all of this?
Well, the new rules came into effect. Well, it only applies to certain circumstances. It only applies to accusations of a serious, indictable offense committed while the officer was off duty, such as murder or aggravated sexual assault. And every decision to suspend an officer without pay would first go before an adjudicator. Now, for years, police chiefs in Ontario have called for more authority to fire problematic members and suspend officers without pay. No agency or government office tracks or makes public the total number of suspensions in the province, so critics say it leaves the public in the dark about the scope of suspensions, the allegations that led to them, and their outcomes. Meg?
Thanks so much for that, Dale. That's the CBC's Dale Molnar reporting live. Windsor police are investigating 3 incidents of shots fired at or near Windsor homes. On Monday, police say possible gunshots were fired on Tecumseh Road East near Rivard around 10:30 p.m. Officers are looking for 5 suspects in that case. And today, police released information about 2 reports of shots fired on March 21st that could be related. The first call came in around 8 p.m. on Lincoln Road near Erie Street. Then another call about an hour later along Howard Avenue near Hannah Street. Police say shell casings were found. Investigators say both incidents were targeted and may be related. No injuries were reported in any of these possible shootings. A Windsor police investigation has uncovered $18,000 worth of drugs, prompting officers to arrest a 35-year-old man. The investigation began last month after believing someone was trafficking drugs out of an East End Windsor home. Yesterday, they stopped a vehicle and arrested the suspect on Drouillard Road. After obtaining a search warrant for 2 homes and a vehicle, officers say they found thousands of dollars worth of cocaine and crystal meth. A digital scale and packaging materials were also seized. The suspect has been charged with 2 counts of possession of drugs for the purpose of trafficking. Eid celebrations were held across Windsor today, marking the end of Ramadan, where Muslims fast from dawn to sunset. The Islamic festival is supposed to be a time of joy, but for many, this year's holiday was overshadowed by the Israel-Hamas war. Thousands of people have been killed in the matter of months, including members of the Ismail family, who with heavy hearts took place in today's festivities.
We're here to celebrate Eid with the family. It's a little hard to celebrate right now and be happy for the things that we have, but like I was just telling my family, there's no way the people in Gaza right now, the family back home, would want us to be sad today. They would want us to enjoy it. They're praying for everybody not to experience what they're experiencing. But even praying, it touches your heart. You feel it in your heart, in your head. God is with us. Allah is here watching us. He's watching our family back home. There's only so much we could do. And my dad has been financially supporting a lot of them there, trying. All of us have been trying as much as we can to support them back home.
When I see my grandkids, how they live here, and they have everything, they are happy here, I want that to another kids to live happy, to eat. They have food, they have toys. The kids in Gaza, they don't have anything. They said, we don't have even clothes to wear for Eid, or toys, or anything. So it's too hard. It's too sad for them. No more sad, no more killing, no more war.
I just hope that the whole world sees what's happening, sees what everybody else goes through, and feels what everybody else goes through. Not just in Palestine, it's all over the world.
A Windsor-based group is trying to encourage Muslim communities to become more environmentally friendly. The initiative is called Green Ummah, and they're trying to make some of those environmental changes during Ramadan. They broke down the details on Windsor Morning.
On my end, I make sure that I'm always, when I can, of course, walking to my prayers. So I'm not taking my car, or I'll make sure I'm taking a reusable water bottle, and I'm not relying on any single-use plastic water bottles when I'm going out to the mosque or throughout the month, and carrying those habits forward as well. Not picking up cutlery when you're going for to take takeout is another small thing that I've been doing. But again, I say it's a work in progress.
Colette, what a beautiful day for all those who are celebrating Eid. That nice weather making for some perfect gathering conditions, I'm thinking.
Yeah, some really wonderful conditions, and I hope that everyone who could had a chance to kind of take it in and enjoy it, because we really do have some changes coming in our weather pattern, and it's going to stick around for a few days here. Big groan from all of us. So a weather statement for now has been issued by Environment Canada, and it's essentially just because there's a lot of moisture. It's a moisture-laden system, and it's going to linger, and there'll be areas where the rainfall totals, especially when you put kind of Thursday and Friday together, could be exceeding 40 millimeters. In fact, a few pockets where it could be well above that. So I'll show you the rain accumulation in just a moment here, but I also want to show you for a moment the current temperatures that we're still holding on to, some mid and some upper teens. So a nice evening before all of this flips around on us. So that next system and the waves that are going to be moving in with it just to, well, into the Ohio Valley now, well to the south of us, but very active weather further south from there. I'm going to lay down the lightning strikes. You can barely see the radar underneath those lightning strikes because they're so numerous. Pulling that back out, so very active weather pushing towards Panama City there along the Florida Panhandle. Tornado, not only some severe thunderstorm warnings, but tornado warnings and flash flood warnings there too. So that's where it's the juiciest. We're talking about just these bands of rain that will be coming through. So there will be periods where it's heavier, and we will likely also have some embedded thunderstorms. So here it is for now. It's going to be well after midnight before this starts to creep in, and then once it does, it will pick up in intensity. From time to time, there'll be a bit of break in the precipitation, but then the next heavy wave will be rolling on through. So most of it comes Thursday and Thursday night, but there's still some residual wraparound certainly into Friday, so still some wet roadways on Friday as well, and a need for the umbrella on this with this system. And then, you know, it does get a little bit better as we go towards the weekend. So I said I'd point out a few areas where you could see even more than those 40 millimeters. Right now, Canadian models really want to push those numbers up there for Chatham-Kent and stretching up towards Goderich, so do be aware that could shift a little bit, but there's some areas where we could have some flooding concerns, especially when you couple those rainy conditions with some windy conditions too. So along the shoreline, some of those areas where you're prone to flooding, we have that risk even towards lakeshore region as we move through the next couple of days here. Overnight tonight, well, at least the temperatures remain mild through the overnight, but it's going to have a really cool feel to it once those winds get winding up, and they're going to be exceeding at times 50 kilometers an hour. 16 the high tomorrow with some of those embedded thunderstorms. Still some wet weather rotating through Friday. And I did say it would get a little bit better as we go towards the weekend. So we do have a chance for some showers there Sunday, but some improvement too, Meg.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on that weekend, that's for sure. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
A new Ontario housing bill aims to speed up developments and get more student housing built. Loretta Redicop has more from Queen's Park.
Use it or lose it rules will be coming in for developers in hopes that building will start quickly following an approval. Universities are being encouraged to build more student housing. This new bill aligns universities with the province's colleges by exempting them from normal planning rules. The housing minister says this is not about turning cash-strapped institutions into developers.
No universities approached me and said that they want to get into the real estate business. They don't want to be condo developers. What they have said is because of the changes, the unilateral changes by the federal government, they have to build quickly more student housing. Every new dorm that we build is an apartment that becomes available in the community.
Developments near transit stations won't be required to have a minimum amount of parking spots. It'll be up to builders to decide. Plus, standardized designs for homes, whether houses or larger buildings, will be approved faster, an issue the province heard about from developers.
They will have a design approved in one community and move right next door to the next community and have to start the process all over again. So if we can do a bit more work on standardizing that.
Third-party appeals on developments will be limited, such as appeals by neighborhood and environmental groups.
It can add, 2 years to the process and cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Overall, this urban planner thinks building will be sped up by the changes. But he doesn't like one part, allowing developers to appeal a decision on an urban boundary expansion.
Sprawl is back on the table, and I think that's an absolutely, that's a terrible decision, and it's probably the worst part of the new bill.
The recent budget showed only once the government changed the definition of new housing, adding in long-term care beds, did it come close to meeting its target for building. Opposition parties say the bill doesn't do enough, given the need for housing. They wanted fourplexes permitted province-wide and more homes that are affordable.
And this legislation has failed again to show the ambition, the boldness, and the urgency which this moment really truly requires.
All we have are a few tepid, unambitious ideas that scrape the surface of the massive and substantial change that needs to happen in order to get to the bottom of this crisis.
Another change with this bill involves the controversial Minister's Zoning Orders, or MZOs. They allow for developments to be fast-tracked. The Housing Minister says he's making them more transparent. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Some of the biggest supermarket and retail chains in this country want changes to Ontario's Blue Box program. They say red tape in the system is costing them millions of dollars, and they're lobbying the Ford government to change the rules. CBC senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has this exclusive story.
Who pays for Blue Box collection in this province is changing. By 2026, the companies whose products come in all that packaging will have to cover all the costs of recycling it. This transition began last year. And now the industry is facing sharp jumps in its fees, so they're pushing the province to change the system.
Grocery stores that have been sending us home with tons of garbage packaging for decades, and now that they're the ones who are financially responsible for collecting and managing the waste, they have issues with how expensive it is.
One of the organizations behind this push is called Circular Materials. Its board includes executives from the biggest supermarket chains and food producers in Canada.
The challenge or the concern from producers now is, okay, we're moving towards that system, we're paying our fair share, but we're still, we're seeing excessive costs, and we think that there's a more efficient way to do it.
The industry calls Ontario's recycling regulations the biggest source of red tape in this country.
What we're saying is we think we could save $100 million. There's a lot of duplication in the system.
The big chains also say those costs can be cut without reducing how much Blue Box material gets recycled in Ontario.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit cheaper.
Environmental groups just aren't buying it.
Ultimately, if producers are not paying for this packaging, it's going to be taxpayers, it's going to be the environment, or it's going to be human health. And that would be a massive step backwards.
The changes that Circular Materials wants would give it a monopoly on managing the recycling system across Ontario. That doesn't sit well with the hundreds of independent grocery stores in this province.
We have good reasons for raising a red flag about when we hear somebody talking about efficiencies and having everything in the hands of one company.
A spokesperson for the Environment Minister says the government is open to feedback from the industry and is not ruling out making the changes that the big retailers want. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
There are new concerns about the safety of Boeing airliners after a whistleblower claims construction flaws. We have that story coming up after the break. The Bank of Canada has decided to hold its trend-setting interest rate at 5% for a sixth consecutive setting. Governor Tiff Macklem says inflation and the economy are heading in the right direction, once again saying the possibility of rate cuts are coming.
Now, I realize that what most Canadians want to know is when are we going to lower our policy rate? What do we need to see to be convinced to cut? The short answer is we are seeing what we need to see, but we need to see it for longer to be confident that the progress towards price stability will be sustained.
Most analysts expect to see a rate cut at the bank's next setting in June. Headline inflation is now at 2.8% and is being held there by high housing costs and rising gasoline prices. There are new concerns about the safety of Boeing airliners. A whistleblower claims there are construction flaws in the 777 and 787 passenger jets. It's the latest in a growing list of concerns about Boeing aircraft, and for the second time this year, the head of the company, Dave Calhoun, is being called to appear in front of U.S. lawmakers. CBC's Cameron McIntosh has the story.
They're among the top-selling wide-bodied jets in the world. Boeing's 777 and 787 Dreamliner. Manufacturing processes for both now being investigated by the Federal Aviation Administration.
I am hopeful that the FAA will not allow this to go unanswered.
Boeing engineer Sam Salafor alleging the 777 could have damaged parts. That changes to manufacturing of 787s could leave fuselages with improperly closed gaps.
I literally saw people jumping on the pieces of the airplane to get them to align.
You certainly don't see that in Boeing's corporate videos. Boeing denies Salafor's allegations, along with allegations from his lawyer.
He was threatened with physical violence. He was threatened with termination.
Salafor worked in the same South Carolina plant as another whistleblower, John Barnett, who also raised concerns about the 787. He was found dead in his truck in March of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Boeing, meanwhile, is reeling from recent mid-flight scares. A 737-800 engine cover falling off just this week. A 757-200 suffering wing damage in February. And that 737 MAX 9 losing a door plug in January. The largest aircraft builder in the world, orders were up last month despite its troubles, which have slowed production schedules.
And it's probably going to take a long time for them to get out of this because, again, you have to change the culture and they have to go back to a more safety-oriented culture.
Boeing's CEO has announced his retirement later this year. Salafor has been invited to testify in Washington next week.
I'm doing this not because I want Boeing to fail, but because I want it to succeed and prevent the crashes from happening.
Although there is an investigation, neither of the planes have been grounded. Boeing insisting it always works with regulators. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An encounter with a horse at a very unlikely location has made international news. More on that coming up. Some horsing around at a train station near Sydney, Australia. This runaway racehorse startled commuters when it turned up at a busy rail station. This crafty animal had somehow navigated a set of stairs to get to the platform and was at least sensible enough to obey the rules and stand behind the yellow safety line. As trains approached, the horse had bolted from a nearby stable yard. It was eventually captured by a staff member and returned home safely. An award-winning painter from Brazil is preparing for her big break in Paris, and she's only 10 years old. Sofia Helena was just 6 years old when one of her teachers spotted her talents, and she's been drawing and painting ever since. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.